Hello, my name is Sheila and I would like to welcome you to my podcast All About You. I love to listen to podcasts and especially conversations with famous people. However, I think everyone has a story to tell. Maybe a place you have visited, a hobby you enjoy, or anything that you feel would be of interest. I want to have conversations with lots of different people and hear their stories. So if you have a story to tell, please contact me on my email allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com. My name is Sheila and I would like to welcome you back to another conversation on my All About You podcast. Today, I'm delighted to have Alicia as my guest on the podcast. I have known Alicia for a number of years and she is an English and Spanish teacher originally from Argentina, but now is very lucky and lives next to the beach in Valencia. So Alicia, welcome to the All About You podcast.
Hello, Sheila. Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here with you. Yeah, I'm going to talk about my idea of coming to Europe, but mainly to London. And it was, a trip of my life. I'm going to talk about that.
So when did you first start to have the idea about leaving Argentina?
Yes, it's a good question. At the beginning, it started with an idea. And then it became a dream, slowly. It was kind of progressing about that. So it started, I think, in my adolescence when I was learning English, because I formal English studies since I was 12 years old. So at that moment, all my books were about London, or they were showing me London, England, London mainly. So at that moment was kind of an idea. And then, in my house, my parents were Italian. At that moment, in my house, my parents used to talk to me in Italian. They speak Italian to me. So I had languages in my mind all the time. And I did like the idea when I was a teenager, my mother used to receive letters from Italy. I was really, perhaps, I don't know, 10 years old, even younger, And my mother used to say to me, okay, so here we have a letter from, obviously at that moment didn't exist internet or computers, anything like that. Nothing like that. So my mother said, okay, we have a letter, so let's answer them back. So here you have pen and paper. Why don't you start writing? I said, Mom, I don't know how to write Italian. I don't know Italian. No worries, I will spell for you. So she was spelling for me the words in Italian. And I wrote an Italian small letter to my cousins. Finally, in my trip, I went to visit them. So that, back to the idea, they started when I was a teenager. Then I got married, 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl. And then I got divorced. Life took me to different situations. And when I got divorced, I started to dream about going to London and started, to develop my dream, because I had at that moment many issues to solve, to how can I say, to organize. Yeah, organize. We thought my children were teenagers. They were at college. And I was looking after my mother, who she had a mental illness. Being the older, the older of my, between my brothers and me, I was the older. So I was in charge of, the issues, the problem, the mental issues that she had. And I was taking her to the doctor. I was giving her the medicines. So for me, it was a lot of it was a lot of things to resolve, go within myself and analyze if that was going to be, to be to make the right choice, leaving all that responsibilities behind. My children, my mother, my house, my office, my jobs. I started to analyze with professional psychoanalyst, and I learned a lot of things about myself. That was really going into myself, inside of myself, looking inside and searching inside. What was my motivation, or what were the most important things in my life? But then I learned that the most important thing, it was myself. Yeah, I started to analyze, and I discovered that obviously languages were really important to me. At that moment as well, I was trying to decide between different careers. I wanted to be a psychoanalyst, I wanted to be an accountant, and then I decided to be an English teacher. So all my formal career was in Buenos Aires, about being an English teacher. That was it. I started to analyze. At that moment, so I managed to sell my car. At that moment, I had already to pay a piece of land. I managed to buy in a very nice countryside, because I was going to build a second house for holidays, with tennis court and swimming pool. So I was divorced. I was working hard, raising my children. At that moment, they were at secondary college. I was doing my life. Then obviously, well, it happened a lot of things. So I managed to sell that piece of land. I decided not to start, with the construction of a second house. And with that money, I made my trip. So I started to travel. Obviously, my first trip was Italy. So I decided to stay with my family for a month, and they wanted me to stay there, and they tried to convince me, stay here with us, we are going to get you a job, and blah blah blah. I said no, because this is not my aim. No, this is not my choice of coming to live here. I came to here to visit all of you. It happened that my family were surprised how well I spoke Italian. Well, I speak. Don't forget, your auntie is my mother, and my mother talked to me Italian all the time at home. So my ear was used to listen to Italian, but obviously I didn't know how to speak. Funny enough, when I was a teenager, I used to receive my colleagues from college at home, and my mother talked to me in Italian, and I was really angry. I was saying, Mom, please talk in Spanish to me. My colleagues are here with me. They don't understand you. Funny enough, I hated that situation, when my mother spoke to me in Italian. At that moment, especially when in front of my colleagues, my first job in London was to be an interpreter. I'm going to talk about my career and my job was to be an interpreter with an Italian patient going to NHS looking for help and looking for an interpreter. I was interpreting for her in Italian, so my job was translate from Italian to English and vice versa. When I was in London, I called my mother. One of the calls, that I made to my mother was to say, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, because thanks to you, I had my first job. At that moment, when I was a teenager, obviously I didn't appreciate the fact of having another language parallel to Spanish, parallel to English. Those languages were coming to my mind without knowing that they were going to be my future.
And that's often the best way to learn, isn't it? Because you started learning from a very young age in a very natural environment. And I believe that is the best way to learn languages. And particularly now, children that are growing up from a very young age, learning a second language, the gift they have of a second language for their future, absolutely priceless.
It is amazing, how the children are absorbing the languages at school, at college, and yeah, then when we are a bit grown up, it's harder to learn.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our brain is full of more things, isn't it, as we get older?
Exactly.
It takes us longer to learn a second language, definitely. So all the youngsters who've got a second language which they've learned from a young age, they are so, so lucky.
That was like a challenge, great for me, leaving my children, leaving my mother, my jobs. At that moment, I was working. I had two jobs. I was working. I was giving private tuition to students. They were Spanish speaker students learning English, and I was working at a secondary college teaching them English. They were between 12 and 18 years old. And also I had my own office. I used to have an administrative job. The name is gestora in Spanish. I used to work with accountants and lawyers and the owner of the business, because they were hiring me to work with the town hall or the tax office. So I had my own office, so I was working with my own clients and giving private tuition to students. Also, I went to a secondary college to teach English. So I left my jobs, I left my office, I left my children, I left my mother, I left everything. Now I'm laughing. At that moment was dramatic. Now is obviously proud of myself, because thanks to that great, huge step, my children were able to come to Europe. Then my mother came to visit me while I was in Valencia, not to London, but when I was in Valencia, she came to visit me. And at that moment, she was still able to walk. Then she couldn't walk anymore. She said to me, "Now I can see why you didn't come back to Argentina. Don't ever dare to come back to Argentina. Stay here, because this is a paradise." I felt proud of myself. A lot of, point of views, because I was on my own doing all these things, resolving, solving, organizing these issues.
I mean, that's amazing, because it must have been so difficult to leave your children and your mother. As you say, you sold the land, you sold your car, came over to Europe on your own. Then, obviously, having your mother turn round and saying, "Don't you dare come back to Argentina. You so made the right decision." And I'm sure that was many, many years after. Having that word spoken by your mother just must have just lifted a huge weight off your shoulders, thinking, "Yeah, I thought I was doing the right thing at the time, but now I've literally got my mum saying, yeah, you did the right thing, and go girl." Absolutely.
Yeah, very mad that when I left the country, when I left Argentina, I didn't tell my mother about my dreams. I didn't tell my mother about my plans. I didn't tell anybody. My plan was going to live in another country for a change of life. I was keeping this, very quiet inside, very deep inside of myself, because I was dealing with my fears, and I didn't want to leave and to deal with the fears and to talk about the fears of the rest. Not even my daughter. She didn't know I was coming to live I was going to live to England or to London. So I told them I was going for a holiday, a nice holiday in my life. And I never said when I was coming back, but I never told them. my plan was going to live in another country.
I mean, that's an amazing thing in itself, the fact that you had this dream and you'd been planning and investigating in your mind, but then you didn't speak of this to your family, to your friends. I quite typical. I think a lot of us can have a dream in our minds and in our hearts, and we're frightened to talk to people about it because I think, why are you thinking about being a professional singer? You can't sing, or what makes you think you can do this or do that? And I think often, if we do talk about our dreams, people can shoot us down so quickly that it can destroy your dream before you even start.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's not because they envy you, or they are bad people, or they want to make you feel bad. No, I think it's because they are talking about their own fears.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because if you go and complete your dream or follow your passion and you make a success of it and they haven't done anything, it makes them feel bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah, oh, this is in the realms of psychology here, Alicia.
Yes, exactly, exactly. I love psychology. I love to learn. I love to learn about my inner, and I think the more you learn about yourself, the more you can understand the other minds as well.
Absolutely. You understand other people, why they do what they do, why they don't do what they do, even. Yes.
And the important thing as well is that when you think about things that you want to do, think and do. So you have your talk,
Yeah, the self-talk to yourself that you can do something. There's lots of things we probably all want to do, but we always have this on our to-do list someday when this is right and when that is. There is never a right time.
So then from Italy, I went to London. I started in London to work, to look for jobs. So first of all, I have to really give a big thank you to Veronica, who was my friend's daughter. And she invited to go to her flat. Yeah, she was the one who said to me at that moment, she was saying, Alicia, why don't you come to London? What doing in Buenos Aires? Come to London, visit, and stay here. You can stay here, you can work here. I started to work with my idea, with my dream, and that was when it became a reality. So I went to her house from her flat. From her flat, I was looking for a place where to live. Parallel to that, I was, looking for jobs. So I started to teach Spanish, giving private tuition to different students. One of the students told me, why don't you go to this agency? Because they work with different languages. I did. I went to the agency. So I became a part of their staff, and I started to teach Portuguese, Italian, and Spanish. The agency used to send me to different students' houses. It was really good experience. I remember as well something funny that happened to me. They said to me, "Okay, do you have experience?" I said, "Yes, I do. My teaching experience started in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. I used to teach teenagers, well, to be a teacher in a secondary college, as well as giving private tuition to students." That agency said to me, "Do you have a reference name and a reference telephone number?" I said, "Well, yes, she's in Buenos Aires. I can give you the address, the physical address." At that moment, they sent a letter to Buenos Aires. The agency sent a letter to Buenos Aires to ask for a reference about me, which I didn't know. Then that person, after a period of time, I don't know, I think I called her. At that moment, didn't exist WhatsApp. So I was using so from London, I called her And she said, "Oh, Alicia, I did write a letter for you. Do you know if you received the letter?" And I said, "What?" "Well, and the agency bonded. Yes, we'd received a letter from Buenos Aires." So I was surprised. I didn't know that they were going to contact her, That was a good experience. And from that agency, I got a student who was learning Spanish. She used to work for the NHS. She was the one who told me, "You are so good at languages. Why don't you apply to NHS to become an interpreter?" As well as, parallel to teaching, I don't know why my skills are helping me to do two jobs at the same time. So with the teaching, it came up a student who needed as well an interpreting and a translation help with the owner of her flat in Spain. So I said, "Yes, I can do that." So I was calling the Spanish owner on the phone, and my student was next to me. So I was doing the interpreting on the phone, talking to the Spanish owner, translating for her into English. He was talking to me in English, and I was translating to the owner in Spanish. That came, so easy to my mind. It was easy to. So when my student, a nurse, or I don't remember if she was a nurse or she was an administrative within the NHS, she said to me, "Why don't you apply to the NHS to become an interpreter?" And I said, "Well," I was, kind of, "Well, let's do it." I wrote a letter to the NHS. It was good because they replied me in 2 weeks. I had a package with all the forms that I had to fill it in to give them back, send them back, and become an interpreter. So I said, I couldn't believe my eyes because I thought, "Oh my God, this is going to happen." They called me. So I had an interview with the manager of the interpreting office it was in North Middlesex Hospital. So she called me to have an interview, and she said, "Do you have experience interpreting, doing interpreting?" I said, "Yes, I managed to help a student with that situation. I managed to help another student in London with another situation. All were business situation, commercial situations. The students were saying to me, 'Oh, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that?' Because obviously owners of a second house or second villa in Spain. And I was so happy, so happy, very rewarding helping. It was rewarding for me to be able to help people, to communicate and to solve problems that they weren't able to do it. So I explained the manager and I said, "My experience was this, this, and this." And she said, "Have you ever worked with medical terminology?" "Not really, I have to be honest." "Would you like to take a course within the NHS?" I said, "Yes, please. I want to. I really love to take a course." So the manager gave me the opportunity of, taking that course that was within the NHS. It was given by a company within the NHS, and it was amazing. I was enjoying so much that course, so much. I had such a really good experience of learning about, that career, interpreting with medical terminologies. And then obviously I was also studying about medical terminologies in other languages like Portuguese and Italian. Well, Spanish wasn't, was okay for me. I needed to learn a lot, not even in English, but also in the other languages. I was working, so while I was performing my job interpreting, I was learning and I was learning as well with the patients. The patients were in a real need of help to be able to communicate with the doctors or the professionals. They were doctors. I carried on teaching, Spanish through the agency, and also experience teaching as well Spanish to English people in demanding situations, such as, for example, teaching a group of health professionals who were required to learn the language to help with their patients. So that was really rewarding as well. I was teaching them, making sure that they understood how to apply the new words in the correct context. It was really rewarding. A successful situation was as well coaching with private students as well. They needed to sit their Spanish GCSE exams and A-level exams like AQA or OCR, IBO exams as well. I am taking into account that in that situation, the students developed skills, and they were writing and reading and listening and speaking as well. Even more demanding was and also satisfying was when at that moment my role of helping to train teachers who wanted to improve their knowledge of Spanish pronunciation, and as well how to use the Spanish language in the classroom. As well, this involved different techniques, and also suggesting them ideas or activities they could use in the classroom. It was very, very satisfying. Another thing that now came to my mind was when I started to work at different primary schools and also teaching Spanish. That was fantastic. That was my first interview. So how did it come up? I was an interpreter working for the NHS, working at North Middlesex Hospital. Parallel, I had to say, as well as, teaching Spanish to the professionals at that hospital. One of the staff at the link worker department within it said to me, "My husband works at Tower Hamlets Council. Would you like to have an interview?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Okay, so he's going to call you." So he called me, and he said to me, "Would you like to come for an interview? I need a Spanish teacher for primary schools at that area." That area was, I said, "Yes, why not?" And okay, so I went for the interview. What you do in an interview is to reply questions, to talk about yourself. I took my CV with me, and he said to me at the office, being at the office, now I'm laughing, but at that moment I was shaking. So he said to me, "Okay, let's go to the school." "What now?" "Yeah. So the head teacher is waiting for us." I said, "Okay." I was going with a person who I didn't know. I knew it was the husband of that lady. So he took me with his 4x4, I remember it was, and he took me in his car to the school. He went, which I didn't know. The head teacher was waiting for me. So she said to me, "Okay, let's go to the classroom." Sheila, believe me, I was just, I couldn't believe my eyes. I didn't know I was going, where I was going through, what I was going to do. They took me to the classroom. Suddenly I saw, the head teacher, the assistant of the teacher, the person who was interviewing me, and myself in a classroom with 35 students or 30 children. They were children. They were I don't remember what class was. They were between 8 and 10 years old. Oh my God. And they said, okay, you start your class. I couldn't believe my eyes. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I started to teach. Obviously, nobody said to me, you had to teach these, you had to do that. Nothing at all. They said to me, okay, this is the classroom. It's all yours. And they were standing there observing me. And children were, messy, and they were doing a lot of noise. And obviously, I started to say to the children, I spoke to them in English, because obviously I wasn't sure if they were going to understand my Spanish, and that was my first interview, Sheila. So it was amazing, because in the middle of the class, I was teaching them the greetings, buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches, when to use one, when to use the other, repeating, and, making them the echoing, so repeating. And suddenly, first of all, I was managing their behavior, because obviously they needed to be quiet, to be able to listen, to be able to look at what I was writing, look at the board, and to be able to repeat. So I was managing with their behavior without looking at them, because they were there observing me. So at the moment, my body was shaking, shivering. I was, oh my God. And then I said to myself, come on, Alicia, this is easy for you. It's not your first time. Come on, forget them. This came to my mind at that moment. After a little while, the lady with the tray, with the merienda, so she was bringing the children, the snacks. So I thought, oh my God. And they started to, again, to stand up and move around. And I said to the lady, please, could you please leave the tray on the desk? And when we finish this it's going to be a short lesson for them, we start with a break, with the snacks. And she said, yes, without knowing me. And I didn't know her. And they still were observing me, And I thought, oh my God, God help me, I was saying. That's it. We ended the class. We finished the class. We left the school. The head teacher said, thank you very much. The teacher, everybody was saying to me, thank you, Alicia. I started to walk, going through the car again with that man. I don't remember his name, to be honest, but he used to be the manager of the education department. And he said to me, well done, Alicia, well done. I said, look, I'm so sorry. I had to stop the lady with the, bringing the snacks, because obviously they were, in a kind of emotional situation. Oh my God, now the snacks are coming, so forget about Spanish. And he said to me, well done. First thing, behavior. Second, teaching. Absolutely amazing, he said to me. Okay, have I got the job? Yes, of course, he said. That was in our way, going to the car, driving back. He drove me back to the office. And it was, oh my God, I couldn't believe my eyes. I didn't know how well I was doing. So this is part of my experience. I'm really proud of myself that, I could really teach, and I could also gain a lot of enjoyment in these classrooms, and the students were really happy. My part of my story, part of my teaching career.
That's really interesting. And I think it's, for me, all the different opportunities that have been put in your path. People have suggested you talk to this person. People have suggested, have you thought about doing this? And I think things have sort of been put in front of you, opportunities. You've taken those opportunities been there for a while, and then another opportunity was presented and you ran with that opportunity. So yeah, I think it's a fabulous story, Alicia. Fabulous.
It is. I'm really happy. I feel proud of myself, and it's rewarding. It's very, very rewarding knowing that you can help people with languages.
So what are you doing now? You're in Valencia now, and are you teaching languages still?
As well, I'm still teaching languages, and I'm still working teaching Spanish and teaching English as well.
And so you don't know for the future what other opportunities are going to be put in front of you. So to be how it works, which is fabulous.
It's a good point, Sheila. It's a good point. I don't know, but at the moment I'm happy in Valencia. I'm really happy.
Thank you so much for spending time and going through your story. It's been absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much for being a guest on the All About You podcast.
Thank you very much. You are a star, and I'm really happy.
Thanks, Alicia. I hope you have enjoyed the conversation. Don't forget, if you have a story you would like to tell, please get in touch. My email address is allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com, and thank you for listening.